Hello, Mr. Radio, your friendly station. So glad of your company, your morning music.
Hi, welcome back to Andy's Vinyl, and we're going to do another video looking at my ELO collection on CD. I've done a part one, which you may have seen, which basically covered a lot of CDs from sort of mid-70s up to the 80s and beyond. I didn't do the EMI harvest stuff, of which there's quite a few actually when you take into account ELO, Roy Wood, The Move, and a lot of the Move 60s catalogue as well. So we're going to go through those. So it'll take a little while, so let's get cracking on it now. So first up are these two releases, twin releases that came out at the same time. So what we've got there is a Jeff Lynne and Roy Wood collection of pen songs for their early 70s endeavours. So with the Roy Wood one, we've got tracks from Wizard, Roy Wood's solo career, ELO, and The Move. I'm not going to read the tracks out because we'll be here all day if I try to do that on some of these CDs. But yeah, these were put out in 1989, and they were put out to celebrate 20 years of Harvest Records. Hence somebody thought it was a good idea to do one collection for each songwriter across the projects they were involved in at the time. With Jeff, we've got Move stuff, ELO obviously, and the Argle Race sort of making up the numbers on the tracks. I think EMI owned the catalogue for the Argle Race at the time, so they could shoehorn that onto the CD. And yeah, the nice little collections, that's the back of them. This is kind of the first time that these sorts of tracks have been put out on CD in the UK. I mean, a few of them had come out on an earlier mid-80s compilation, which I don't have, but for the most part these tracks were seeing the light of day for the first time on CD, particularly the Argle Race stuff, so it's quite exciting to have them. Yeah, so they were celebrating 20 years of Harvest Records. The following year, in 1990, we got another Argle Race collection, but this one's devoted to the Argle Race entirely, despite the fact that it's just Jeff's picture on the cover. You'll probably recognise the painting from the blue poster. So there are 25 tracks up on this CD. It's C for Miles Records, and it's a nice little collection. Whoops, that's this cover's missing one of the lugs on there, so I'll have to get that replaced. Yeah, so it's a nice little collection to have. There we go. So next up is the following year, 1991, we got this, and I have to say this was the first time we had anything significant released for ELO's Harvest material. The early compilations I showed you all featured standard tracks, whether they be album tracks or A or B sides. This one is a twin CD fat box capturing a lot of ELO's Harvest material. In fact, at the time this came out, there was nothing that had this amount of material on it. This includes the whole of the first album. It includes 4 additional quadraphonic mixes from the first album, plus the single mixes A and B sides, plus some early versions of Ma 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 Bell and Showdown, which at the time nobody had never really heard before. So when this came out, it was something quite special. It's got liner notes in here, but I'm not going to get the liner notes out of the CDs. I'll be here all day. But yeah, that was quite a nice collection when it came out. Superseded now, which you'll see in a moment, but good all the same when it came out. One other Argle Race CD collection came out around 96. Back to the Story. This has got, I think, almost everything from the Argle Race on it. Barring perhaps some demos or some BBC session material. This has got all the regular stuff on it. It's 2 CDs. So the CD one has the birthday party LP and the Eagle Ace self-titled LP, plus a couple of alternative versions. CD2 has non-album tracks, so basically A and B sides, and the Time Is LP, plus 2 tracks by the Night Riders, which obviously feature Jeff. So that was quite good to have. Nice back to the booklet there. Just one note on this CD: the CDs are printed in monochrome, and the inlay tray at the back is blank. That was supposed to have the discography for the band in there, and the CD labels were meant to be in colour, but EMI rushed this out a little bit, and apparently the work wasn't completed on the production side, so we didn't get it quite as it was meant to, but it's nice to have all the same. In 1999, it was the 30th anniversary of Harvest Records, and we got 3 CDs issued relating to ELO. I've only got one, and that's this one, and it's the CD version of a 1974 vinyl LP, a compilation of the Moves Harvest stuff. It's quite bold colouring, but I like it. It's the first time we got anything like the Harvest logo on a CD printed label, and it's basically 11 tracks mirroring the original vinyl LP. I wish that Harvest or EMI had put out the other 2 CDs along the same lines. So this is a compilation. The other 2 that were put out were an early version of ELO 2, and the first CD release of ELO 2 LP and Wizard Brew LP, and they were just standard track running orders and basic artwork replicating the original releases. Quite basic really, so I didn't bother buying them. I bought this one because it was neat to have this in CD form. They ought to have put out the See My Baby Jive compilation for Wizard and the ELO Showdown compilation for ELO, because all 3 of those complemented each other and were roughly released within a year or 2 of each other back in the 70s. So it would have been great to have all 3 on CD, but we just got this one, so that's in the collection. Right, let's move on to what I consider to be the definitive versions of these LPs on CD. So this is now the early 2000s, and we're starting to see real big efforts by EMI with the help of Rob Cager, who was ELO's archivist and did a lot of work to issue some of those remastered CDs that we looked at in the last video. We did the same for EMI material. So what we've got here is a box set of the Electric Light Orchestra's debut album. Nice box cover there, just a track listing on the back. We get 2 CDs, we get the original album, and we get First Light, the Electric Light Orchestra, which is basically a combination of different mixes and tracks taken from elsewhere, and I'll just go through that briefly in a moment. Yeah, so the original album has the original running order and the 9 tracks plus 2 session tracks. One's the Back of the Master Moore and one is 10538 Overture. It's also got a little section on here. Enhanced CD section includes memorabilia and original promotional film from 10538 Overture. Now this came out in 2001, and what you would often get in the early 2000s when bands and artists were having back catalogue stuff remastered and put out as a sort of definitive collection, they'd often go to the trouble of putting an enhanced section on the CD, which basically means you can load it up into your PC CD-ROM drive and you might get a film or you might get some visuals. And this is a combination of the 2, memorabilia material, like promotional posters, and maybe some album artwork or foreign single cover artwork. I can't remember quite what's on there. And you get a video. And I've got a few CDs like that with other artists. You don't really get that now because things have moved on, and if you're going to do that sort of thing, you're more likely to do a DVD disc within the collection to cover that sort of thing. But it was nice to have all the same. All these things have the proper Harvest vinyl LP prints on the CD, and they've all got inlays. Nice bit of photograph there from the back of the LP. and they've all got good comprehensive liner notes. Again, I'm not going to get them out because it's going to be too much of a struggle. The second CD starts with Brian Matthews' introduction. And basically Brian Matthews was a BBC radio DJ doing a lot of stuff in the 60s and 70s, introducing artists on his regular weekly show. So he introduces ELO's first record, which was 10538 Overture, and that comes up as the second track on here, but it's the acetate version, so it's a very early version. Then we get some more quad mixes, then we get some live tracks. I think, looking at these, the live tracks are actually taken from a Granada TV broadcast, which I have on a DVD, which if you looked at the ELO DVD/film video I did, you'll know what that release is. So we've got some audio versions of 3 of those tracks. Mr. Radio is a take 9, so that's sort of different take on the one that ended up on the LP. And 10538 Overture finishes the CD off as a live BBC session. So that's very nice to have. I think these things are still available actually, so that they're not as rare as you might think they're going to be. Next up is the box set for the ELO 2 LP, and I've already got the CD sticking out here because this particular box is very tight. It's sort of almost an interference fit, to use engineering jargon. So this features the light bulb motif with the band on the cover and painting of Beethoven on the back, which was common part of the backdrop for ELO's live performances at the time. So we get the ELO album, ELO 2 album, and mine, I'm lucky to have some signatures on this that came through the Face the Music fan club. So some of these things were signed when they first came out and sent off to anybody that wants to buy it through the fan club. So that's really nice to have. I think Richard Tandy's on there, Wilf Gibson the violinist, so that must be a rare autograph. And I'm not sure who the third signature is, I can't read that. It might be Michael de Albuquerque, possibly. And we get the second CD, which is called The Lost Planet. The Lost Planet is the title of the second album, the original title for the second album, at the point when Roy Wood was still with the band and they'd started the album sessions. They changed it to ELO 2 some point afterwards. So what have we got on here? Obviously we've got the original album running order, 5 tracks, all of them quite long. We got some bonus tracks, so we get A and B side for Showdown. We get Baby I Apologise, which was a demo record that didn't make it into a full-blown song. We get some early versions of Mon Mama Belle. We get an early version of Dreaming of 4000, tracks that ended up on the third LP. But you may remember from an early video of mine looking at the albums in order, some of the On the Third Day third album material was actually recorded for Harvest but not released on Harvest, so some of those takes are actually under the Harvest label, and we've got them here. Everyone's Born to Die, which is a track that didn't make it anywhere else, and an early take of Oliver Beethoven. On the Lost Planet CD we got another Brian Matthews introduction, then we get some BBC session material, some more single A-side, this one right over Beethoven, plus early takes of Showdown. One's called Your World. Now thinking about it, Your World, another track called Get a Hold of Myself, and a version of Mama. These were all sung by Carl Wayne, which some of you will know was the lead singer with The Move. So when Roy left and they were still in the studio doing work for this album, Carl was invited into the studio to sing lead on some tracks to see how it went, to see if maybe Carl would join the band as the new front singer. For whatever reason that didn't happen. Carl didn't join the band. I don't know whether he was asked to or he turned it down, or whether Jeff decided not to go with the idea. But it's nice to have these songs on here. They haven't been released anywhere else to my knowledge. And we get Wilf solo, so we get a violin solo plus a BBC session of Roll Over Beethoven. So that's good to have those. Right, a few more in the same vein. This is a CD card release with about 4 or 5 tracks on it. It's a promotional release. I picked it up at a record fair years ago. So it's got 10538 Overture, the first movement, an early take of Mr. Radio, a live version of Whisper in the Night, and the enhanced CD section from one of those CDs that I showed you. Another version of the first album, this one in a slipcase. So this is 40th anniversary edition. So you wouldn't think another edition was needed, but yeah, they do it. Because what they've done here is, it's a 2-disc set. First one's a CD, and it has the original album running order, plus bonus tracks. So you get some early mixes and demo versions, most of which are from earlier CDs. You also get an audio version of 10538 Overture, which was done for the Top of the Pops edition in 1972, where an artist went on Top of the Pops, which was a UK weekly programme highlighting chart singles and tracks. I'm only saying that for anybody watching this who isn't in the UK. They'd often have to record a slightly different mix of the song because of union rules. So so there's a version of this song for Top of the Pops that's been languishing in the vaults, and they brought it out and put it on this CD. The second disc is DVD, and it's basically the whole of the first album in quadraphonic mix, which is the first time the whole album's been put like that in one go on one release. And then lastly, the original promo film for 10538 Overture, which has already been released elsewhere. And we get 2 CDs, late 90s, early 2000s again, which actually 2004, 2005 I think, which are replacing budget CDs. For those in the UK, you'll know that with ELO, budget CDs are 10 a penny, they're everywhere. Every time EMI or Sony release a catalogue of artists on a budget label or budget price point to target a particular audience, they always put a collection of selling artists in there. ELO's no exception. So they've always had budget price CD collections in the shops racks all the time. Well, what happened was, with Rod Cage's help, they decided to phase out the budget CDs they had on the shelf at the time and put a bit more thought into the replacements. So these 2 CDs have a mix of tracks on them, including some quad mixes, some live material, and some early alternate mixes. Now in some cases the material is already available, such as that one there. In other cases it wasn't available at the point that this CD came out, so it kind of filled 1 or 2 gaps in for the those of us that like to have everything on the shelf. And I think between all of these CDs you can actually make up a full quad mix of ELO 2's second album, which isn't available in one go anywhere, but you can mix and match and make up the album yourself. You'll recognise that photograph there. That came out of the sessions for the first album artwork, and it almost replicates the cover of the vinyl LP from 1977, Light Shines On Volume 1. Right, lastly in this little section is a free CD set that EMI decided to put out in 2006. Nothing on here that's not come before, but they wanted to put out a collection that had everything in one place. As it happens, it's not everything, but it's near enough. It's the first 2 full albums, plus session material from each of those albums, plus the single A and Bs, plus the full quad mix of the first album again. It's nicely packaged. If I open this one up, so you've got liner notes plus CD1 in green, and then CD2 and 3 in different colours. There's nothing on here that hasn't been released elsewhere. Okay, moving on to some Move stuff now, or Roy Wood's related stuff. So some of those ELO CDs were issued in the sort of what was called a first light project that EMI were doing to get all of the original ELO Roy Wood material out in remastered form with bonus material. So the Move's fourth album, Message from the Country, that came out on Harvest in 1971, is given the same treatment. This one, I think that's signed by Beth Bevan. Again, I must have bought that from the fan club. So this has got the original running order. That's the back, by the way, photograph from a TV promotional broadcast. It's got the original album plus A and B sides plus 3 unreleased session tracks, which are Don't Mess Me Up, The Words of Aaron and Do Ya. Again, there'll be good liner notes in there, so that's good to have. Same treatment was given to the Wizard Brew album. That originally came out in 1973. This has got the original running order, obviously, plus bonus tracks, which are basically the A and the B sides. It's nice to have them all in one place on remastered CD. There's no demos or rough mixes or session tracks or anything like that for the Wizard material. They must have had early versions in the studio, but I don't think, if there is, I don't think any of that stuff's come out yet. But a good release nonetheless. The last original album in that set of 5 is Roy Wood's first solo album, Boulders. So that comes out with the original running order, but it also has some material on the end. Just one bonus track actually, an early rough mix of Dear Elaine, and that's it. There's one other in this Harvest reissue effort, and it's a CD version of a sample album. So if you look at one of my first videos for my ELO collection, I introduced you to the concept of sampler albums and how a record label would put one out to showcase the diversity of its artists on its catalogue and give music fans the option of buying one or more of the LPs. Well, this is a sort of homage to that. It's a combination of ELO, Move, Roy Wood and Wizard tracks put into one place, and the liner notes inside talk a lot about the contracts that they're all signed up to, and slightly more at the business side of things. So there are some tracks on here that don't appear elsewhere. So for the completist, you've got things like Do Your 7-inch version, 105.8 Overture USA Radio Mono Mix, Mr. Radio 7-inch version. Now you might be thinking, I don't remember Do You or Mr. Radio being out on singles. Well, if you look at one of my other Harvest videos of ELO's vinyl, there is a version of Do You on vinyl which came out in 1974, which didn't chart, and it came out after California Man, which was the last original Move single. So there was a 7-inch version of that prepared, so it's captured here on CD. Mr. Radio was going to be the second single from the original album, follow-up to 105.8 Overture, and the version of it was prepared for single release, but cancelled. So that mix is on here too, along with the Moves Tonight, which is a USA Radio edit, and Buffalo Station, which is an edit for the Wizard album. I'm not sure where that came out originally, if it ever came out. It might have just been done in studio and then never released for some reason. So nice to have that as well. Okay, I'm going to move over to a different record label now. So this is the first of many CDs I have in the collection, which is on the Astotic record label, which is owned by Cherry Red Records. So they have the back catalogue for the Move stuff and Roy's other material, including Warner Bros and Jet material from the 70s. So this is now the definitive release for Wizard's second album, introducing Eddie and the Falklands. It's a nice card fold out issue, nice artwork. The liner notes are inside here, plus a miniature copy of the original poster that came with the LP, which again you'll see in one of my other videos looking at the Warner Bros. Years. So this has the original album tracks plus standout A and B sides released on Warner Bros. Back in the day. So it's nice to have that all in one place. The same treatment's been applied to Roy Wood's second solo album, which was Mustard, originally released in 1975 on Jet Records. That's another fold-out release with liner notes and some lovely artwork there. So that's got the original album running order plus A and B sides, including Oh What a Shame, Record Snake Roll and Indiana Rainbow, which were all Roy Wood / Wizard releases back in the mid-70s. And a third slotted release is this. This is Roy Wood and Wizard's Main Street album. Now, there's no vinyl equivalent to that. Back in 1976, it wasn't released. It was recorded, but never released. So those of you that are familiar with Roy's career will basically know that in the 60s he was a prime member of the Move, and he wrote a lot of their singles and a lot of their hits, responsible for a lot of their hits. So he was writing 3-minute pop songs that were very well known. When he was with Wizard in the early 70s, he was doing a lot of sort of rockabilly stuff, and that sort of progressed, and by the time he got to 1976 he was making an album which is more experimental than his other stuff, which is more commercial. So this is very jazzy, rock influenced, and I think he was hoping that it would catch on and become the next big thing, but the record label decided it wasn't going to be, and they didn't release it. So years later we got a version of this on CD in 2000 on Edsel Records, which had the back catalogue for Roy Wood at the time. Don't have any of their CDs left. I had a couple and sold them, I think, because these have all superseded them. So we get the original track running order that would have come out on the LP had it been released, plus Human Cannonball, which wasn't scheduled for the LP and was a track that was left on the shelf. It's another lovely fold-out release with liner notes. So if you're a completist with Roy's stuff and you want the best possible CD versions of the albums, those are the ones you've got to get. Right, two more Roy Wood / Wizard collections here. This is Roy Wood the Wizard, the greatest hits and more EMI years. So it's a little bit of a crossover with the earlier Harvest release which we've seen. It's got Wizard tracks on here, Roy Wood tracks, and one ELO track which is Whisper in the Night. That's the back of the CD. But it's also got 2 tracks by Roy Wood's Helicopters, which was a very early 80s project of Roy. Roy had a band that was short-lived called Roy Wood's Helicopters, and they had a single called Green Glass Windows on EMI, and the A and B sides have been captured here. We also get a Move track, California Man, on here. Lovely artwork actually on this one, so we don't need another EMI Harvest logo on the CD. This kind of artwork kind of celebrates Roy's late EMI years, or even his Warner Bros. Years. Some of these photos I don't remember seeing elsewhere. Maybe they weren't used. Maybe it's the early 80s and he decided to dress up like that again, but we didn't really see much of it in print form. And finally we get Roy Wood, Look Through the Eyes of a Fool. No, Look Through the Eyes of Roy Wood and Wizard. So this is another collection. It's a 2 CD collection, and it captures a lot of the former Warner Bros. Stuff, the Jet stuff, but it also goes into the 80s. So it's capturing a lot of his 80s material, such as Sing Out the Old, Bring in the New, Starting Up from the Starting Up album, Hot Cars, Raining in the City, Under Fire. So it's a collection of non-EMI stuff, contemporary from the 70s and the 80s, 2 CDs. Again, a really nice artwork there, and liner notes. So the next stop is a part of CDs which is basically Move stuff. So I've mentioned Static slash Red Cherry Records that currently have the Move and Roy Wood back catalogue license. Hopefully they might release Roy's 1978 album, which was called We're on the Road Again. That didn't get a UK release, only got a USA release, but I'm hoping they release that, plus maybe one or two other ELO rated things that they have the license for. So I'm going to briefly show you 3 Move albums: The Move, Shazam and Looking Gone. Now the reason I'm showing you those together is because they're all on the Salvo label. So when these came out around 2008, I thought these were going to be the definitive versions, and they are good, you know, great liner notes, great artwork, a lovely jewel case EP release there, Flowers in the Rain, with some lovely artwork on it, and that was released to help promote the release of these, or re-release of these albums in remastered form. And there's a lot of bonus material on here, but I'm not going to shout that out too much because Salvo no longer have the license for that. I think they may have gone bust, I'm not sure. And Static, as I said before, now have the license. So all that stuff got put out yet again. So what we get is we get a jewel case Something Else EP, which has got the original LP plus all the various cuts and mixes that came with that recording. So bonus tracks on here record the vinyl version of the EP plus the unedited live versions of tracks that were performed live on the night. So this EP was a live EP and it came out in 1968 and it's recorded at the Marquee in London. So it's a mini live album really. When you look at the extra tracks on here in the expanded format, this is now a live album. So there's tracks on here that do not feature on the vinyl version of the LP, but that vinyl version's on here as well, so it's a complete record of the release and very well put together. Lovely Regal Zonophone retro printing on the CD. Can't remember what's on the back. Okay, yeah, slight live photo on the back plus ads for the other 3 albums that are coming out on this label. So that's really nice to have. We also get The Move, an expanded form again. So this is 3 CDs. Obviously it includes the original album plus A and B sides, plus unreleased material, and there's too many tracks on here to go through. There might be some BBC session stuff on here, I'm not sure. Yeah, this 3 is entirely BBC sessions, 1967 to January 1968. So there's a lot of stuff on here, very well packaged, folding out. It's essentially a mini box set. So very good release. Shazam gets similar treatment. This is 2 CDs. Again, the full original album plus A and B sides plus alternative mixes and different versions of tracks, plus all of the BBC sessions from May 68 to November 69. So there's a lot of stuff on there, a lot of stuff. Very well packaged. Another fold out release. Liner notes, good printing on the CDs. Move's 3rd album, Looking On. Same treatment, 2 CDs, original album plus A and B sides as appropriate, plus some outtakes and other rarities, plus BBC sessions March to July 1970. The Move did a lot of BBC sessions, and it's nice to have a collection that captures a lot of these across these albums. There's also an interview with Bev Bevan at the end of this 2nd CD. So Bev talks about the shift in the Move's tone from being a light pop outfit to a more heavy rock outfit, and how that was planned and executed. Some great artwork on the fold out in there. In fact, I think I've got line on this. I think that must be a poster. Yeah, I can't remember getting that out, so I'm not going to get that out in case I damage it. But yeah, superb stuff. And this one I have mentioned before because part of it's a DVD, so I talked about this in some detail on the ELO DVD film video that I did. But just to reiterate, it's got disc 1 is a collection of move tracks throughout their whole career, including some EMI Harvest stuff right at the end there, which they've obviously licensed from EMI to do it. And disc 2 is the DVD, which has a lot of live TV performances, some of which will be UK and some of it will be from Germany. Again, another fold out and another CD disc printing with the Regal Zonophone sort of retro look about it. So that's good. But just a handful left before we're finished. So the box set also came out. This one's come out on salvo, so this belongs with the earlier releases I showed you. But nevertheless, those early salvo releases do have a wealth of extra material, just not quite as much as Static have put on their releases. So this is a 4-disc set that runs throughout the move's entire career, picking up regular LP and single releases, plus rough mixes and alternative takes, etc., plus the live EP in expanded form, plus some Harvest EMI stuff right at the end there. So I'm not going to go through all the tracks because there's so many to talk about, but it's a very well packaged set. So even though Static have got the current license and I've got the slightly better expanded versions of these LPs on CD, the salvo ones are still good, and this salvo box set's definitely worth keeping hold of. So 4 discs made out with sort of fly cube record labels there, and this has got a really thick book inside it. You can see tucked in here. That's not just a CD liner thing there. That's a book at the back there, mini book with a thick spine. But also it's got postcards, a poster and stickers, some of which probably came through the fan club. So if this is still available to buy new, shrink wrapped, I can't promise that the cards and the stickers are going to be in there. The book certainly will be though. So yeah, great box set to have. And finally, 3 more discs to go in the collection. This was an early release on BBC's Strange Fruit label, which specialised in putting BBC sessions out. So when this came out in 1996, it's the first time any Move BBC sessions have been made available. So it was quite something at the time. It's quite an important release, but I think it's been superseded by those Static releases with all the extra material on them. But at the time, very nice to have. This is next to a quite oddities really. So the Move did 1 tour in America, and this CD captures a live performance at the Fillmore in 1969. So the Move went on tour in America in '69 with Carl Wayne, Beth Bevan, Roy Wood and Rick Price. So this is just before Jeff Lynne joins the band. And it's the full live shows recorded to cassette back in the day. So the sound quality is not quite, top notch, but it's been remastered and it's a decent sound quality. It's on a private label, I think, Right Recordings. Never heard of them before. So the independent record labels captured this. And it's got all of the live tracks that were committed to tape at the time, plus a really good interview with Beth Bevan talking about that Move 1969 USA tour. Interesting interview that. Liner notes are included and some good photographs of the band on tour there. Yeah, so that's very good. It's 2 CD actually, thinking about it. Yeah, so that's worth having. And lastly, this is an oddity. This is a solo effort by Ace Kefford, who was the original Move bassist. And Ace had a troubled life actually. He's part of that early Move lineup, the famous 5-piece lineup that did Top of the Pops and the early singles and the first LP. But he left the band and he recorded a solo album in 1968, and then in the 1970s he recorded some more solo stuff under the names Ace Kefford Stand and Rockstar. And in the early 2000s this stuff was dug up and remastered, and Ace had recovered from his illness and was available to be involved in the project. and I ordered this through the ELO fan club, and Ace was kind enough to sign it for me, so sadly he's passed on now, so it's great to have his autograph there. Yeah, so that's a bit of an oddity as well. There's some liner notes in here and printed CD label. I think Castle Communications put this out, actually. Yeah, that's a Castle one. And that's it. That's all my ELO Harvest stuff, all Move and Roy Wood stuff. Hope that was of interest. I'm sure there's plenty of releases in there you probably never heard of. So if you are looking to buy some stuff and you want to know a little bit about it, I suggest you can Google that now and look up some of those titles and check what's on them in full. And hopefully you find that interesting. So that's it from me for this year. So I might do one more video in the new year. I'm aware that I've missed a few things on some of the early videos by mistake. Not much, but a few ELO box sets and one or two other things. I've got some stuff that wasn't in scope for the earlier videos, maybe a few foreign imports, that sort of thing, and a few tour programs and books. So I might do a sort of wrap-up video that just captures all the odds and sods that haven't been covered. Anything that I bought in the meantime as well can be added to that. Until then, if you're watching this in the next few days since I recorded it, it's coming up to Christmas, so have a great time, and hopefully I'll see you next year. Bye.